Somebody phone in Cloud Strife MD, cause holy circumcision with a buster sword. Final Game of Thrones 16 is an over-the-top, high-budget sci-fi fantasy cinematic masterpiece, basking in a large pile of overly mature cruelty, betrayal, death, revenge, love, growth, power, sex, possibly sex with chocobos, swords, and magic, that within the first 10 minutes of the demo, rather than let you play as the protagonist and go through a tutorial, have you locked into a graphically spectacular battle of sci-fi-ness gods, thinking more like this is an $800 million Wrath of the Titans movie. And it leaves you more confused than a Neanderthal in an algebra class. But by the end of the demo, it all makes complete sense and it's about the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. Utter epicness. The amount of polygons, particle effects, color palette, and complexities going on in the opening section of the game really just has the devs yelling specifics in your face. They're saying this game's gonna be big, it's gonna be epic, and it's gonna be grandiose. And well, as a fellow consumer, I can't fucking wait for it. Although my channel is mostly made up of my harsh nitpicking take on film and television, seeing as how I am the biggest Final Fantasy fan that I've ever met, I just couldn't resist making this video. So without further ado, my fellow consumers, let's get into the throes of it. Let's start with the cues and inspiration taken from, well, it's pretty fucking obvious here. I mean, this game, the presentation, here it's pretty much unapologetically blatantly in your face. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't look great because it looks Tony the Tiger great. And I feel like every Game of Thrones character that you haven't seen since Game of Thrones ended is probably showing up in this game. I'm loving this game for what it is. I will say it shouldn't be the formula for every Final Fantasy game moving forward, but this is a great one and it works for this. The combat and the graphic style owes a huge chunk of its inspiration to Elden Ring. You can see it, it's written all over it. I mean, I'm talking down to the aesthetic looks of the assets, like the crates and the barrels that you like rolling into in Elden Ring and Dark Souls, you know? But even the fucking items you pick up in the field are completely identical to what they look like in Elden Ring. My Elden Ring players know exactly what I'm talking about. That bright little white sphere with a thin rising light above it, blatant as fuck. If I were From Software, I'd be pretty humbled by the great and mighty Final Fantasy that it ripped off my shit. The truth is, greatness recognizes greatness, and money recognizes money. The decision makers at Square Enix understand that gamers like familiarity. Diving deeper into the combat, it's nothing like any of the other games previously offer. There's no tactical strategy here. The mechanical presentation in this demo is fluid and it's all real time, down to the magic and healing systems. You press a single button to drink a potion, albeit a little more fast-paced than Elden Ring, but it is nonetheless definitely inspired by Elden Ring. It feels really good not only to swing the sword and sling even basic fire spells, but it feels great when the attacks connect with the target, from slashing to shooting fire spells. I mean, the presentation, the aesthetic look, the feel, it all just feels and looks fucking awesome. It's all on point, all top notch, all Final Fantasy that you know and love. I would say this game has a very comfortable balance on the high octane action pack that we know from Devil May Cry 5 and the methodical tactical combat and visual prowess like Elden Ring. I'd say that's a pretty good fucking combination if you ask me. It really works for this game in particular. In my opinion, Final Fantasy 15 was not a great game. It was a letdown. I mean, the open world is gorgeous. There's nothing like that landscape and the vistas that they present there, but the game itself, the combat, I just couldn't pick it up. I did not like it. Now, a game like that could have really benefited from this type of battle mechanic system. However, aside from Final Fantasy 15, this kind of mechanic that works so well here in 16, I guarantee it probably wouldn't work well for the other Final Fantasy games in the past. It's funny, I also want to mention they have this really interesting little mechanic in the game. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called a quick time event, where you have to hit a button in a cutscene. Yeah, that's called a quick time event if you don't know. Evidently, the people at Square Enix didn't know either, because they coined a brand new name for it. They decided to call them cinematic strikes, which I thought was pretty fucking funny. I mean, guys, think about it. If you change the name and color of a smelly piece of turd to a beautiful looking exquisite dish to eat, isn't it still that same smelly piece of turd? Will you eat it? Anyway, don't think too hard about that one. Now, what I thought was really interesting about this game was because typically Final Fantasy is the leading pioneer in the gaming industry when it comes to top-notch character design, graphics, overarching characters, and story depth. Now with here, this game kind of feels like it wouldn't even be possible if the likes of Game of Thrones or Elden Ring, basically everything that George R.R. Martin has been working on for the last 20 years, hadn't existed. It just kind of feels like it wouldn't be around if those things kind of never came to be. While it doesn't exactly feel like George R.R. Martin had a hand in this game like he did in Elden Ring and Game of Thrones, it does feel like a team of specialists was hired specifically to make something exactly like those IPs that George R.R. Martin did. The good news is it doesn't feel like too much of a try-hard. It actually feels pretty natural here, and I'm really looking forward to sinking my poison claws into this full game. Now, I'm not saying that the move for Final Fantasy to change things up and take inspiration as opposed to being the one who provides the inspiration, it's just different from what we know. Final Fantasy leads the charge. They are the pioneers of the fantastical epicness. But hey, whatever. If you need to grab inspiration from some great stuff out there, who am I to bash you? That stuff they're grabbing inspiration from is some really high quality stuff. I mean, Game of Thrones and Elden Ring, it does not get any more fantastical, sci-fi, high concept fantasy than that. And boy, let's talk about the score here of this one. You can go ahead and stick a crayon in my ass and color me impressed. They nailed this fucking score. Listening to this modernized Final Fantasy VIII battle theme coupled with a Skyrim type quarrel that chants the classic victory theme to the most epic Todd Howard-esque way possible just really warms the icebox where my heart used to be. I'm hearing all kinds of hybrid sounds combining the best parts of Final Fantasy 9, 8, 12, 7. It was just spectacular. The score is unbelievable. Anytime you put my favorite and most recognizable themes from the good old days and hit it as hard as they hit it here, well then, Square Enix, you better serve up a side of surgery gloves with this game, cause you've got me bent over quicker than a 40-year-old first-timer at a prostate table that only made an appointment because of an unsettling, never-ending tickle in his anus that started after exposing it to some rather dicey Indian food last Sunday after church. Surprisingly enough, from the demo at least, the dialogue seems to be that of high quality, and I enjoy listening to the characters' conversation and learning more about the story and conflict happening. When you can provide me with great subtext and dialogue from characters that actually convey the situation, and you're gaining knowledge about the predicament they're in, that's some good fucking writing. And those of you like Falcon at Game Ranks that are worried and skeptical that this game will be so action-focused that the story takes a back seat and it's gonna lack the classic long drawn-out Final Fantasy narrative that we all love, fear not, Falcon from Game Ranks. The narrative is very much present here, and this game is in fact the peak of true Final Fantasy storytelling fashion. The high-octane action-packed part of the game is just a beautiful addition to the overall narrative. It makes sense. The truth is, I've been waiting for a Final Fantasy game like this to come out for a long time, and I'm finally glad it's happening as a veteran gamer. I'm pretty sure the final product will be loads better than what the demo has given us, and we can expect to see at minimum everything in the main game that we saw in the demo. And, well, if we can expect at least that much, then I'd say this game still has the makings to be Game of the Year, at least in the eyes of the readers of the book of the Myles High Club. And here in the Myles High Club, that's worth something. Alright, well the video's over, so until next time I guess. Bye for now.